Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see all the locations popping up in the comments. Looks like we have some cold spots and some warm spots in the U.S. right now. And just want to welcome all of you to Not Your Student's Chromebook. This is a Teach with Chrome series. I'm Jason Hilt, and this is Serena Patterson. And we're just going to take a few seconds to introduce ourselves to give you some perspective about where we're coming from and set the stage for this session. And I want to make sure that you, those of you who already have added a message in the chat, please continue to do that if you have questions. I want to make sure that we allow plenty of time at the end for questions, especially if you are contemplating transitioning teachers and staff to Chromebooks. I want to make sure that we see your questions and can answer them. So my name is Jason Hilt, Tech Director in Lower Moreland Township School District, right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I want to thank, first and foremost, Kuiker Learning and Google for Education for the opportunity to be here. It's this afternoon for us. I know it's in the morning for some of you. And I've been an IT director here for 5 years. I was a classroom teacher at elementary, middle, and high school level. That definitely helps provide a perspective for me in making decisions related to technology. I'm also a Google certified trainer. And I also want to thank Google EDU Twitter for giving a shout out to Hill Consultants. My wife and I consult with Google Workspace and Google for Education. And in addition to Chromebooks in the district, we also have Chromeboxes and then laptops and workstations in specific areas. So you get to learn a little bit more about our district throughout this presentation, but I want to introduce Serena. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself.
Hi, I'm Serena. I'm a paraprofessional in Lower Moreland. I support students with diverse learning needs at the middle school level. I'm a daily Chromebook user, use this every day. And a little bit about me is I coach children aged 3 through 6 in various sports such as t-ball, basketball, and soccer. And I'm a huge Philly sports fan. Go Birds.
All right, thank you, Serena. The agenda today is very straightforward. We're going to provide an IT or tech director perspective and teacher perspectives related to Chromebooks in the classroom for staff members. We're going to talk about the 4 C's in Chrome OS. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to provide plenty of time for Q&A. And we're going to show you some of our favorite resources that we found to be beneficial. So we're calling the section 1 a day in the life with Chrome OS. And what we're going to provide are really 3 specific areas: considerations, solutions, and successes. As you can see on the screen, some of these have links, and they'll either be examples or exemplars. And then we'll move to the teacher perspective with Serena in just a few minutes. So we're going to start out with considerations. And first and foremost, a consideration when considering a transition to Chromebooks for staff members and teachers or to enhance a program that already exists is curriculum and instruction. So questions that would be asked are what resources, what applications are teachers and staff using, and do the software or do the book publishers provide an online version? Certainly very important to have those resources in the cloud. Professional development, which we're certainly going to speak about in a minute. You want to make sure that it's not always just about the device. It's about ensuring that the technology is integrated into the curriculum and that they're easy to use, like Chromebooks and Chrome OS. And then any considerations related to special areas. And as I mentioned before, we have Chromeboxes and Chrome bases if there's a need for a desktop with a large screen. Second consideration would be budget and infrastructure. And I just want to call your attention to a site on the Google for Education page where it talks about finding the right Chromebooks for your institution. So there's information here, and there is also a session about Chrome OS Flex coming up, so I certainly encourage you to tune in for that. But for specific use cases in classrooms, there's a lot of different choices. So I want to make sure I called that out, that there are, it's not just one Chromebook model, it's not one size fits all. There are certainly a lot of options, and it's something to be excited about if this is a consideration. Organizational management is certainly a consideration. You have, in the infrastructure piece, you have to ensure that you have connectivity in the school buildings. And at this point, that's something that the Google EDU team can help advise. And you want to make sure that the devices are connected and stable. Organizational management, using Chromebooks with single sign-on is easy. It allows users and groups to be created at a central level. And deploying apps and extensions, if you're considering that, it's just made easier. I want to call your attention to security. This is top of mind for an IT director to ensure that devices are secure, user information and data is secure. And part of Google Workspace for Education is an admin console. It just makes it very easy. So if you're thinking about transitioning to Chrome OS and Chromebooks, security is top of mind, and it's made easier with Workspace. I want to talk about solutions, and this is a huge positive for teachers and also for students who are using Chromebooks, and that's internet access. The offline mode, internet access is great, but when there's an issue, and we had an issue recently where there was a break in the fiber about 10 miles from our school. Offline mode came in to help, and it has been expanded in recent years. In addition to working on docs, sheets, and slides, there are also ways to watch movies and listen to music offline and continue the work that you were doing prior to that internet outage, which is phenomenal. Printing, when Google Cloud Print was sunset, there were a number of opportunities for printing, and we found success with printing with Chrome OS and Chromebooks. And again, everything works seamlessly. So if a teacher needs to print something for an upcoming class, it is a single click, and you can send it to the print queue. It just makes life and teaching a little bit easier. There were certainly some virtual learning obstacles and considerations in the last 2 years. And I just want to call your attention to this page, because these are just the updates that Google has made to Meet since March 2020. And again, I'm scrolling. This is March 2021. A phenomenal amount of updates. Certainly Chromebooks and Google Meet go hand in hand. And Google really taking the initiative to, and this is back to March 2020, of first and foremost, new controls for education accounts. So you can see there's certainly a commitment with Google and ensuring that teachers and students have the tools that they need. And for change and change management, what's nice is when we update or upgrade Chromebooks for staff members, and we use Chromebooks at our board meetings, and Serena and I are both using Chromebooks right this second. When we upgrade or update, the user experience is consistent. And we know that even if the model number changes, we're going to get that consistent experience. It makes change a little bit easier. I'm going to highlight a few successes from an IT perspective. There's apps and extensions. I'm going to show you the Chromebook App Hub in just a few minutes. You know about extensions and apps if you're a Chrome user, and using Chromebooks, it's a seamless experience. Consistency and tight integration. I can utilize this Chromebook, or I can log into another Chromebook in the district. I can log into a Chromebook at a board meeting, and I know that I'm going to get that consistency. I don't need to worry about any kind of a learning curve. Durability and reliability from an IT perspective, and if there are classroom teachers or IT admins or administrators on this during the session, you know that it's great to have devices, but when they don't work, they need to be repaired quickly, and you need to know that there will be enough devices for all staff members and students. What I like as an IT director is Chromebook repairs are very straightforward. There are programs that manufacturers offer, and there are programs on the roadmap that will allow that to be more streamlined. And Chromebooks are user-friendly from a repair perspective. I added a graphic to the slides with total cost of ownership. This is going to depend on the area, and it's going to depend on a lot of other variables. But the takeaway from this is, if you take a look at the cost of an alternate device, a non-Chromebook versus Chromebooks, the return on investment, total cost of ownership, and from an IT perspective, the staff time required to manage those devices really tilts the scale towards Chromebooks, and Chromebooks over time. So this graphic demonstrates that information. Total cost of ownership, as I mentioned, it's part of the equation, but you want to make sure that the devices are usable, user-friendly, and I think from an IT perspective, Chromebooks check all of those boxes for staff members. Serena and I are going to provide some teacher perspectives in the same 3 categories, and Serena's going to take it from here.
So when it comes to accessibility, that's something that is super important. I work with students every day who benefit from the Chromebook accessibility features, and Google makes it really simple for students to enable features like text-to-speech, Zoom, and color adjustments that all make learning a lot easier. And for compatibility, so oftentimes there's years worth of Word documents and other documents, and Google Workspace makes that easy for everything to be uploaded into the Google Drive and converted into that collaborative Google Workspace. for docs. Audio visuals. So there are many options for projecting what's on your Chromebook screen to students in class, and Jason's going to touch on that a little more.
So Serena, before I do that, this reminded me of a joke that I heard recently, and hopefully the audience doesn't object to a quick joke. Is that all right? All right.
Sounds good.
So you'll understand why in just a second. A Google employee hurt her arm, went to the doctor, x-rayed, and it turns out that it's broken. And so, Serena, do you know what the doctor recommended?
No, what did they recommend?
They recommended a Chromecast. So hopefully one or two of you out there are laughing. Casting and Chromecast are things that people think of when they think of projecting either from Android devices or Chromebooks. One thing that I found important with the teacher perspective is you can plug in a Chromebook and project it, or you can cast it wirelessly. So in terms of considering any updates to the infrastructure in a classroom, it's seamless. And I know a consideration is always professional development. Serena's going to provide a perspective there.
So professional development, there's always, whenever there's a new device, it's important to learn how to use it. And our instructional coaches have created a Google site with tons of professional development resources for us to use. And that helps us to grow and be able to adjust into using new devices.
Absolutely. For solutions, classroom management, one of the products that we use is GoGuardian.
And GoGuardian is super helpful in class, just being able to keep students on task, monitor what they're doing, opening tabs for them, chatting with them privately.
Which also leans into, and certainly works really well with Chromebooks, leans into the feedback loop. So one of the links that I wanted to show you is related to student work in Google Classroom. Just using Chromebooks as a classroom teacher works, and I know that I've said seamless a number of times. It certainly works really well. With the solutions with time and change, very similar to the IT perspective, Serena's going to tell you about how Chromebooks can be a time saver.
So Chromebooks power up super quick. It's easy to open your docs, restart where you were, tabs reload exactly how they had them before when you shut down your computer.
Certainly all benefits.
And change is easy with Chromebooks, super easy.
With successes, one of the nice features with the Chromebook and certain Chromebook models is the ability to use touchscreen or tablet mode. Tent mode, some people call it, and Serena has a Chromebook that she's using now. So if she wanted to use a stylus-enabled Chromebook and take handwritten notes, that's something that can be done, and certainly a success. Battery life for both teachers and students. It's nice that if a student or a teacher comes in and may have forgotten to charge a Chromebook, we know that it's still going to be available for use throughout the day. We talked about ease of use and that unified user experience. We're going to move to the 4 C's in Chrome OS, and both Serena and I are going to talk about some of our favorites and favorite tools related to the 4 C's. So, and again, those 4 C's are communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking. So with Google Chat and Spaces, this is something from a tech director perspective that my team and I are using Google Chat all the time, and I have an example linked here with just what you can do with Google Chat. So as a matter of fact, earlier today, we were looking for a specific Chromebook. I was able to, in chat, take a photo of an asset tag, and we were able to locate that device very quickly. And those people who needed to know the information were involved in that chat. Shared drives has really been a game changer just because of the way that you can customize that. So when I'm collaborating with staff members and the admin team, having the ability to customize shared drives related to curriculum and instruction, pupil services, transportation, and then also customize access levels really allows us to fully utilize our devices and really be more efficient and more collaborative. I mentioned WeVideo. This could have fallen into the considerations category. And one of the conversations that we have, or many of the conversations we have, are related to transitioning to a Chromebook and doing a one-for-one comparison of applications that a staff member has been using. For developing and creating videos, WeVideo has been phenomenal. Think of it as Google Docs with the collaboration piece, but also creating video. So we can have a board presentation coming up, and classroom teachers can collaborate to create that video, and then it's quickly and easily shared. So if you're not familiar with vVideo, I'd recommend that. There are other Mac OS and Windows video programs and applications that people use. This allows you to do that in the cloud. And for critical thinking, I went with Chrome Experiments. This is not only fascinating to me, but it's also motivating for teachers and students to really think beyond or outside of what the curriculum may dictate or script. The experiments are created, uploaded, and submitted, and therefore end users to take a look at. And you can see some of these where coders are creating here's a good one, Snoring Guardian, Snore No More device, created and coded, and then you can launch that. So if you're not familiar with Chrome Experiments, I'm going to show you one live in about 2 minutes. That's called Auto Draw, but I wanted to draw your attention to Chrome Experiments. With communication, Serena's going to talk about one of the Google sites that teachers use each day.
And that Google site that we use each day is the library site. Here you can check out what books are in the library. You can see the reliable resources when you're doing a project that requires researching. There's plenty of other things on here, class projects, the Murray Makerspace, some staff resources.
So really a one-stop shop for communication related to, and using Google Sites, and certainly compatible with the Chromebooks and easy to use there. With Google Docs, one of the things, in addition to Google Meet, Google Docs has really evolved in a positive way for teachers. Some of the new features are related to citations and pageless formats in Docs, and can really allow teachers and students to be creative. But that collaboration with Google Docs, when people sometimes think of Google Workspace, they think of Docs, and they probably think of sheets and slides. This has really been a game changer for teachers. And if you're not familiar with the Smart Chips and the Smart Canvas, I would invite you to take a look at those. But from a collaborative piece, Google Docs is phenomenal. And this is the live demo. Well, Serena, what do you think about Google Drawing? Should I show an example, or?
Yeah, I think you should try to draw a house.
All right, she could have picked anything, and she picked a house. So this is, oh, it already says teach with Chrome. So it looks like I'm prepared for this. All right, so there's two options here. One, I'm going to use Google Drawings to draw a house, and the second one is I'm going to use one of the AI experiments, which is Auto Draw. So we'll see if there is a difference at all. So Google Drawings, if you're familiar, you have the scribble tool, and all right, let's try this. Not using a stylus, just using the trackpad. I'm not looking at chat, so please be kind if you are critiquing this house. So not too bad, but there is also an AI experiment called Auto Draw. So if I wanted to include this drawing into a lesson that I was teaching, I could probably find a better way to do that, but still drawn by me. So Auto Draw, I'm going to click the Auto Draw option. It's going to look similar initially, but once the AI engine determines what they think I'm drawing, I can transform that house, it looks like a dog house slightly, into a much more presentable option. I can change the color of the line. So a kind of a nice example of both Chrome Experiments and Google Drawings. And then if you have not experienced as a teacher or administrator applied digital skills, I think I saved one of the best things for last. Chromebooks plus applied digital skills equals the 4 C's taken to another level. Because, and I have an example here with my dashboard. As a classroom teacher, either using Google Classroom or outside of Google Classroom, you can create lessons for students, and that can be independent, collaborative, they can be enrichment, remediation. The sky's the limit, and I just created a Teach with Chrome series class. You can add students to it. I added Discover AI in the daily life and code a joke-telling talkbot so that I can improve the, hopefully, future jokes. So this is in the class. There are a number of different lessons. And the reason I call your attention to this is it's specifically for late elementary to high school, but also adult learners. So as students and classroom teachers are using Chromebooks and Chrome OS devices, it is wonderful to include parents and guardians in that process. So these can also be, you can also include adult learners in this. So from day one of Google Docs to sending professional emails. So just a phenomenal resource. I wanted to make sure that we mentioned that. The last section, section 3, resources and Q&A. I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions and answers. And let me take I'm going to scan here, look at some questions. We have some total dad joke. Lisa, I do agree with your assessment there. I did try that out on my son last night, and he had the same reaction that you did. AutoDraw is cool AI experiment. And okay, so comments so far so good. We do have a couple questions that came in, and I want to make sure we have time for that. So favorite Chromebook resources. If one of these are unfamiliar to you, please check it out. Gopher for Chrome from an IT perspective. I'm able to update 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Chrome OS devices at one time with Gopher for Chrome. If you haven't heard of that, please check it out. Docs with tables. There have been some improvements recently with sorting and adding rows and columns. The admin console is certainly a resource from an IT perspective that allows us to add users, groups, devices. We get some new Chromebooks. That's the place to be. Chromebook Simulator. This is just a nice resource to have as a teacher or administrator. If you're talking about accessibility features or using apps or managing files, they could be Microsoft Office files that as teachers transition, they want to make sure they can open and edit those files. This Chromebook Simulator is a go-to for me. And even just updating Chrome OS, that's certainly a good resource. As I mentioned before, the Chromebook App Hub. These are apps for every subject and grade, and they work really well with Chromebooks. From a teacher perspective, if you're not using Jamboard, please try it out. It is a phenomenal electronic or digital whiteboarding tool that works really well with Chrome OS and Chrome boards. Google Keep to stay organized, Screencastify for creating videos, and Serena's going to talk to you about Story Jumper, one of her favorites.
Story Jumper is super awesome. You can create a storybook and you can change the backgrounds. You can upload your own background. There's some preset ones. If you wanted to add your Bitmoji, you can add your Bitmoji into there. You're able to add the text at the bottom and turn everything into like a digital storybook. And even if you want, you could get it printed into like an actual physical book. But it's awesome for the digital aspect of it too.
Definitely one of my favorites as well. And then Read and Write, which is an extension. And I mentioned Read and Write because when we talked at the opening about costs and applications and resources, paid apps like Read and Write can be strategically deployed to specific devices and to specific students. So if the budget will support 100, 200, 300 licenses, you can also see how often and how frequently they're being used. So you can ensure that the applications that you're paying for are not only being used, but you're getting the meaningful results from them. Some resources I want to call your attention to. It's a Chromebook 10th birthday in 2021, so 10 years of Chromebooks. Google Applied Digital Skills, which I mentioned. PD with Google for Education Teacher Resources. I showed you the hub. And if you ever wanted to know more about Chromebooks or what's new, including scanning documents using your camera, I want to call your attention to the What's New with Chromebook page. It's time for Q&A. We're right on time. Let's take a look at a question from Leah. Leah asked about Go Guardian. Sometimes teachers can't see student screens. Do you happen to know why? I'll just, Leah, quickly tell you how Go Guardian works from an IT perspective. It's an extension that's automatically installed on managed devices. And in most cases, the ability to see a student screen or manage a student screen is dependent upon their connection, but also what they're doing on their Chromebook. So there are some specific applications that would just provide their connected screen to show you that they're online. In the instances where we've run into that, Go Guardian support has been phenomenal. And there's a couple things that you can do in terms of if you have a scene enabled, you can refresh that scene. But Go Guardian support's phenomenal in terms of the Chromebook and IT perspective. As long as that extension is running and has been applied to that device, it should be working as desired. All right, looks like we have time for Well, if we have time for 2 questions, we're going to do 2 questions. Here comes one from Stacy in Sedona, Arizona. So good morning, Stacy. What's the number one consideration when choosing a Chromebook? So this is a very pointed question. Is it cost savings, ease of use, or something else? So on the spot at 1:25 Eastern, I would say the number one consideration when choosing a Chromebook would be the teachers and staff who would be using those Chromebooks. As I mentioned before, it's not one size fits all. And cost savings is, I would say, value added, because if teachers are using Chrome and they're familiar with Chrome OS, getting the teacher's perspective and input, I think, is the most important consideration. You certainly wouldn't want to switch gears and have negatively impact the instructional environment. So I think communicating with teachers and ensuring that you have the supports in place. And so feedback, Google Forms, conversations at faculty meetings and staff meetings. We want to make sure that the teachers have the tools to be successful. What I can say is, and what Serena has shared this afternoon, is Chromebooks can do that, from connecting in the classroom to projection systems to the ease of use. They're just phenomenal devices. And looking at the clock here, looks like we're still okay. At least one more question. We have, all right, so this is a question about transitioning. This is from Tess in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. How long did it take to adjust from a laptop to using a Chromebook? What was the biggest surprise? So I'm going to let Serena talk about, she has a laptop at home. She uses a Chromebook during the day, and possibly transitioning to a Chromebook at home. So what would you say would be either the biggest surprise, or did it take long to adjust?
So it was a lot easier to get used to where to click, the muscle memory of everything, the settings. Everything's very user friendly and easy to just hop in and just start using without having any background knowledge on a Chromebook at all, compared to a different device where you'd have to learn a little bit more about how to copy, how to paste, everything like that. This is all super, super easy.
Nice. So I think the answer is not very long. I'll tell you from a home user of Chromebook and a work user. We bought our first Chromebook, I just wanted to check and see, 8 years ago. It's still going strong, and the district has been buying Chromebooks for at least 6 years. And what I can say is models change, but they're very intuitive. And as Serena said, even when Chrome OS and Google Docs or Sheets have improvements or updates, it's communicated very well. And it just goes back to very easy to use and very easy to use. So it looks like we have time for one more. This is a question. This looks like a teacher perspective question. So I'll share this. This is Megan from Columbus, Georgia. And so we've had Alabama and Georgia questions here. National championship repeat. How easy is it to collaborate with colleagues using a Chromebook? Great question. So you may be using a different device, and looks like Megan wants to know, is there going to be a lot of work involved or PD involved?
So it's super easy to communicate with anyone. There's chat, there's Gmail, there's Docs, and a bunch of other apps that are on Chromebook that you can use to streamline and collaborate with others. So I think it's super simple. You can just log on to chat, and it's as if you were on a little chat, and you just talk to each other. You can see who's online, if they're offline, if they're away. Docs, you can see who's adding stuff on there. You can collaborate, leave comments.
All right. Appreciate the perspective. And let me just scan one more time. There was another comment about Go Guardian and a Cami Rocks. Okay. All right. Let me end with this, where I started. I want to thank Kiker Learning, Google for Education for this opportunity. I want to thank Serena for doing such a really nice job during this session, providing the teacher perspective. And from an IT perspective, Chromebooks work really well. That's the bottom line. There's cost savings involved. There's the intuitive muscle memory, as Serena mentioned, but they work well in the classroom. We know they work really well for students. They work phenomenally well for staff members and teachers. And I certainly appreciate all the participation and for everyone joining us today. Thank you very much.